Sahaji, and I can see so many of our extended family of exporters are present here. And I therefore thank Sharafji and Mr. Sahai for inviting me. We normally go for a wedding, you meet so many people at one place. So for me, it's like that occasion when I'm meeting all of you, though not in physical form, but at least virtually. And therefore, I'm really extremely happy. And I really mean it when I'm saying it's like meeting family, because I really, really consider all of you as my responsibility, as my immediate family members, and therefore we must try to work together to find out what best can be done in a given situation. It's good that coincidentally, it so happens that our interaction happens just after the Reserve Bank of India's governor's press conference. And he himself has put forward a very grim situation in which the GDP will contract for the whole year, but definitely in the first half will be worse than the next one. The international trade, he has said, may contract considerably. He has also reduced the repo rate. Luckily for exporters, he has made it from 1 year to 12 months the credit period. Some measures have been done. But overall, the message is very clear that demand has collapsed, in his own words, and therefore we have a very challenging time on our hands. And that's for economy as a whole. When looking at our exporters, we get affected by two ways. One, when the economy is not doing well, we are affected directly, because we operate in India and Indian economy is not doing well, we will be affected directly. But a second big negative impact on exporters is that the markets in which we export, if those markets are also affected, then we are a double whammy. So we are affected because where we are located, and will be also affected where our customers are. And therefore, in a situation like this, such a situation has never arisen, I think, anywhere in the past, anywhere, anytime. Even if you go by the global, we can discuss it later, but if we go by the global markets, the global economies, they are experiencing one of the worst ever crises. And in that situation, the challenge is for all of us, first, how to survive, and then how do you slowly expand our business. And let me tell you, the exporters are actually the lifeline of India's external sector. We get largely the monies from our, how do you finance some of the very key critical imports of India. We import more than 70% of oil. How do you finance it? You finance it by exports. You need some very critical raw materials for exporting those products. For example, one of our major export basket comes from James and Jewelry. We can never do James and Jewelry export unless we import raw diamonds, because diamonds we don't have in India. And therefore, we must understand the exporter's role is so critical for promoting and protecting India's external sector. And at a time when our exports are going to contract, of course there will be also contraction in imports, but this is going to have a very serious impact on long-term implications of India's external sector. At a time when India's remittances, which come from our people who work abroad, will also be negatively impacted. As you know, India is the single largest importer, or rather, single largest recipient of remittances in the world. We get more than $80 billion of remittances. Those remittances are more than Philippines, which again has large population working abroad. You see Filipinos everywhere. But despite that, we have more remittances. There are also Chinese working abroad quite a lot. Though number is not as large as it was once upon a time, because China's domestic economy grew, so people are also working in the mainland. But even then, we have more people sending remittances back home than Chinese. We have more remittances coming to India than what Mexicans send back to home, because there are large number of Mexicans, particularly in the North America, they work there, but despite that. So that $80 billion of remittances are going to be very badly impacted. And that is because of slowdown in Middle East and other places. So just imagine when the remittances are going to be impacted, when the capital flows coming either in the form of portfolio investment or in the form of FDI will be impacted. So only way we can protect our external sector is through exports. So therefore it has to be our priority, and for this reason, not because I'm from I'm your friend, I'm saying very objectively, making India's export viable, increase their footprint is to be a national priority, and I'm sure we'll have to work on that. I'm sure the Prime Minister will be definitely be working on that. And Prime Minister has always been supportive of these issues. But challenge is therefore now, how do you go ahead in this situation? And I will make some few points. I'm not meant to make a speech because we are talking as friends. Firstly, in a situation like this, I'm now talking only from the exporter's point of view and what government should do, etc. I'm not speaking, and I'm sure Prime Minister would be doing that. And the Honorable Minister for Commerce, Mr. Piyush Goyal, will be doing that, and Finance Minister will be doing that. But looking at some issues. Firstly, in a situation like this, we'll have to first and foremost find out and map which are the markets where there is a demand support given by the government. And Mr. Saraf, you mentioned it very clearly that there are many countries who have given support to their economies. Now those economies where there is a demand support, that would to ensure that demand in turn will bring in supply, and supply will coming in, obviously economy will again prop up. Where the demand support is given, like in the US and Europe as you correctly mentioned, there is still possibility that we might get a share of market from India because there is a demand support. The demand has not collapsed there because demand is at least neutralized by the whatever it was, the collapse has been neutralized because of the package that has been given. So we'll have to identify such countries where there is a demand support given through the package. And the package are phenomenal. Like US has given $3.25 trillion in the first tranche, and now they are thinking of another $3 trillion, which is already approved by the Congress, dominated by the Democrats, but because of the opposition of the Republicans, it is still to be decided how it goes through in the Senate. But because of such markets where the demand support is so strong, and also in Europe, probably we will not be able to lose too much of market share. So we'll have to map it, we'll have to do it properly and take it forward. In that case, one part of that. But second part is our competitors. So one part is a customer where there's a demand support. But there are competitors, like say Vietnam, or like in case of Bangladesh, in case of Ghana. So just imagine, those markets have also been supported. Therefore, you lose little bit of a competitive advantage. Because if your competitors are actually getting a support, which you are not getting, obviously they will have an upper hand in terms of accessing a market share. So I am just thinking about, in such a situation, can we not think about something, at least to explore possibility, if not it happens, a collaboration with our competitor. I remember one interesting talk that I had with the Minister of Philippines. As you know, in Philippines, is our direct competitor for a BPO business. That's the service sector. That is not directly merchandise export. But in service sector, because Philippines is a competitor, I was talking to the Minister of Philippines. I said, I don't want to poach into your market share. You are very good in this, you are competing with India, please go ahead with that. But can we think about collaboration at least to ensure that each one of us increase the market share by collaborating? For example, if I keep competing with Philippines and keep reducing my rate of say $50 to $45 per person, and they keep losing now $40, then both of us are losing. So I think now in this situation, can we work together? Because now the customer is going to be a king. Customer will keep dominating. He will say, why don't you give me 20% discount? Why don't you give me 30% discount? It always happens. Whenever the rupee depreciates, the customer always tries to take advantage of that by saying, your rupee are depreciated, so I will not pass on the benefit to you. You try to reduce your price to me. So same way, to ensure that because we are going to lose little competitiveness vis-a-vis our competitors, because of their government giving them more package, can we think about doing something like this is one point I was just saying about. Secondly, I remember when I was the Commerce Minister, we had done a very important study, and I think FIO was a very important part of that. Mr. Sai will remember. We did a study about mapping markets and products. Because that time, of course, we are never expecting that something like pandemic will happen. But that time idea was to increase our India's export to India. So we said we can export more only if we have market. And what market will export? You must have product. Because if you don't have market and product both at the same time, how will you export? So we did some market research. And that market research was done partly by Exim Bank. I think even Mr. Sai was involved in that process, and we have worked on that. Can we therefore now use that as a baseline, but validate it to find out, use Exim Bank into this, and immediately work out which are those niche markets still available to us, which are those products which we can expect from here. And I think if we do that, probably we'll be able to work on that in a little better way. The second point is going to be, and that is something which we must capitalize on, is that while we have definitely seen a huge packages given, the the European Union is also thinking of upward of $500 billion, such a massive amount. Besides the national economy is giving it. Italy has given separately, UK has given separately, France has given, but pan-European, they're thinking of that magnitude. So what it means? That globally, the money will be available of plenty. The liquidity in the system will be phenomenal, because we'll see that $500 billion over and above what has been given, that money is going to come to the market finally, the money available in the hands of banks or in the people or the corporate. Now in a situation like this, and at a time when central banks of most of the countries are thinking of quantitative easing. What does it mean? They would like to buy all the paper which is available in the market, held, issued by the government, so that their interest rates are coming to close to zero. They will bring in more money into the market, more than what we have expected any time in the past. So just imagine that too much money at such a low cost. How do you take advantage of this cost of money? Because as you know, Sarabji and Mr. Sai, now I can see so many of my friends from the exporting community, you know it better, that one of the disadvantages we enjoyed always was the high cost of money in India, besides other disadvantages that exporters suffer from. So here, can we take advantage of it? Can we have credit lines established in a manner that we can get this access to this cheap money, and that too on a most favorable term, and how do you actually work on that? We have to also keep in mind, as Mr. Sai mentioned it very correctly, is that there are products that we export from India. There is a lot of import intensity, but also the price sensitivity. So not only import sensitivity, but price sensitivity. What I mean by this? Just take our engineering exports. Now engineering exports are one of our key export basket of India. Now engineering exports can happen by using steel as a raw material, because without steel they cannot have engineering exports. Now that value of that, which is the raw material for the exporter, if it is not competitive, we will not be able to export it. So sometimes it makes sense for them to import if it is a specialized steel, or even if it is available domestically, it should be available at a price which is competitive in global market. For example, most of the addition, what you are going to sell is coming from steel. So if the steel itself is valued more in India than what is available globally, engineering exports will suffer. So we have to keep that in mind very clearly, and that's what I feel that we should try to work on that. Also, we have to find out how can we make sure that the competitiveness, which is now going to be the key for us. How do you maintain competitiveness? I think we should do sector-wise study, and I am willing to, along with the Commerce Ministry, Minister and others will definitely do it, but I will also help you as volunteer to talk to whatever authorities are necessary, so that wherever this competitiveness is lacking, not because of the industry, but because of overall atmosphere prevailing in the economy as a whole, how do you neutralize it to the benefit of the exporter? Because otherwise we start with a complete disadvantage. Therefore, we will not be able to compete at all. So therefore, such factors, such issues has to be addressed immediately. So therefore, we can take it up and then we can work on that very clearly. some of the issues that can be done very quickly, and therefore I'm saying I'm not making speeches, jotting some point. One, see any reason why it should not be done, and this is a matter which I have taken up with Reserve Bank of India, is to declare export as a priority sector lending. Because this itself will ensure that there is some sort of support will come to the exporters community. The banking as a whole has to respond to exporters' needs, because exporters cannot be, banks cannot decide how the exporters should behave, because exporters themselves cannot decide how they should behave, because exporters can behave in a manner that their customers demand. And the market situation as prevails globally is going to determine the behavior of the exporters as far as their business transactions are concerned. The banks will have to follow that path. We have done that in case of James and Jewelry. In fact, the James and Jewelry Export Promotion Council chairman, I don't know, Mr. Pramod Agarwal is here. He would tell you that we had worked out a protocol. I think we'll have to do such way, and then we'll have to take it to Reserve Bank of India and tell them, please try to look into that. There are other issues like Reserve Bank of India, normally you have to be paid within 6 months of export. That is something which may be happening now, because we may have to give a little extra credit. Things like that, you know it better, but probably such issues also will have to be properly taken care of. The second issue related to finance and the banking would be that banks should try to, through Reserve Bank of India, create some sort of an external market sensitive credit facility for the exporters. So one has said the individual exporters can go and take it in the global market because there is a rate of interest have fallen so much, but at the same time, why not Reserve Bank of India take the lead into that and ensure that they create a corpus like a line of credit, which in turn they might give it to the bank, but without bank charging too much. Otherwise, if bank charge adding their own service charge, then the end cost to the exporter will not be as low as it should be. But can we work on something like this? This will again ensure that you get access to lower cost of finance in the times to come. Other issue, I think this is something which we need to do it very quickly. If you recall, Mr. Sai, at that time, Gupta ji was there, Mr. Saraf used to be always playing a role from behind. We had decided that we'll open India's trade offices into some of the key global markets of the world. Because the embassies of India have burdened with so many other responsibilities. But if you have trade office, and there is an example is what Korea has done, Jetro has done. They have offices, even the Canadian businesses have done. They have offices only to promote it. They can be kept in the embassy office to save cost, but there should be a focused approach on promotion. Because at a time like this, the entire combined strength of the country has to be used to promote exports. And for example, if somebody is already located there, he can go and market the products in a proper manner. I think we'll have to aggressively work on this strategy. And while we do this, we decided some 8-10 places where we wanted to have this market. I used to have a very extensive discussion. Even Sushma ji, she was a External Affairs Minister, had explained to her that we are not competing at all with your foreign service, but we want to complement it because this is a very specialized job. I want to help my exporters. Their own representative. Exporter can pick up a phone and talk to that person directly, saying that, see, listen, I want to talk this, but other country, my competitor like China is trying and going and giving some deal. So that person can go and meet him immediately. Why should every exporter from India has to go to that foreign market time and again, incurring huge cost? It can be done very easily by a person there, and in any case, because he is there, he will develop a very close person relationship. So this will have to be done. While we do this in some selected market, all other embassies in India, in Indian embassies globally, now we'll have to have at least 1 or 2 key persons assigned with exclusive responsibility to service our exporters, to help our exporters, to promote exports, to solve their problems if it is related to payment, if it is a solved the problem, if it is some consignment is waiting at a port, cannot be cleared. Any quality issues which are raised unnecessarily, we should go and take it up. And the entire might of the country should be used for promoting exports. That is how other countries are done. We have to do that very effectively, and I think that again can help us in a big way. The other issue should be, how do you look at subsidies? You know, we in India, and this is what I've been saying, and I was told my colleagues in the ministry also, that why we call it subsidy. We are not giving any subsidy. This should be our stated stand. Why? Because what we are giving to the exporter is to partly neutralize their disadvantages as a result of a system in which they operate. Whether it is infrastructure deficiency, whether it is high cost of finance, whether it is a logistical chains which are not effective, all of those issues are we are trying to neutralize by giving some, not subsidy, but not even full subsidy, but partly reducing their burden on account of inefficiencies of the system which they have to bear. I think we need to redefine, therefore, what is meant by subsidies in this. And again, I said the entire arm of the government, not just Commerce Ministry alone. Commerce Ministry tries to push it. I am sure my dear friend Piyush Goyal will be working very hard to push it. But the problem comes when all other arms of the government must realize the importance of exports. I'll give an example. The spices people came to me and said there is a dumping which happens actually using Korea and Vietnam, some countries like that, which are nothing to do with it, through Sri Lanka, because using and actually misusing the provisions of FTA. We worked very proactively and aggressively, and because they keep sending me messages, so they were reminding me again only yesterday, that's why I'm just mentioning this, that only because of that proactive involvement, all agencies, DRI, customs, all of them were taken, because I had taken personal meeting with them, and as a result of that, the system was worked. I think now in times to come, we have to work in such a way that export is not the exporter's responsibility alone. He only makes it happen. But the entire arm of the government, the entire machinery must support them fully. The other aspect, and again, Saiji will recall this, and we had a very important first area on this, is merchant exporters. I think we'll have to very aggressively push merchant exporters, and I'm telling you why. There are a large number of small exporters, small, medium, small industries who are exporting today. But they are not reaching a scale that is necessary. They are not necessarily having the negotiating capabilities with a buyer because they themselves are so small. If they work through merchant exporter, in any case has to rely on those small and medium enterprises, because otherwise how will you export? But by doing that, we'll be able to scale it up and also increase our negotiating ability. The merchant exporter will be putting more resources for marketing, will probably be able to even have his own office globally. And therefore, this kind of support we'll have to provide, and this type of advantage we'll have to do. There are certain sectors in which we have taken a lot of efforts. That's one is agriculture export. We created a first ever agriculture export policy. There's a huge scope for export agriculture, aggregating to almost $100 billion. In fact, even now, I've been working on that, and I think it can really help. I'm not going into too much into that. And my last point, because I can see the time, so I am not speaking more, but only last point. I think this is a time that we must think about engaging with the rest of the world and have as much of, if not FTA, at least PTA. We must have larger engagement with countries. And I think for that, we'll have to find out what the country. We have done some work on working with European Union. After 13 rounds, rather 16 rounds, in 2013 we had suspended our negotiations. I talked to Cecilia, who was the trade commissioner of EU at that time, who was my old friend also, that lady from Sweden. I talked to her and we started talking, but not formal negotiations. With Africa, there is a tremendous opportunity even now. I think we'll have to explore that further and strengthen our relationship where we already have some sort of a trade understanding, to the benefit of India. I am saying this all should be done to derive maximum benefit to our own exporting community. But this kind of engagement, so country will have to stand behind the exporter. Today we call it Corona warriors. Those doctors, those nurses, those health workers, we recognize them and we honor them. Rightly so. Now it's a time we call our exporters as warriors for India's external sector. They are the ones who are going to protect India's currency not from getting into difficult trajectory. And to do that, the whole country, whole arm of the government will have to stand behind them. So I will stop here and I will be very happy to answer. But actually, as you know, Mr. Saiji, I requested because another webinar at 12:45. But whatever time you permit me to go, because I cannot just forcibly walk out unless you allow me to go. So I will stop here, and let me reiterate one thing. That my dear friend Piyush Goyal as a Minister of Commerce, my other friend Nirmala Sitharamanji as a Minister of Finance, and of course our Honorable Prime Minister is doing everything that is possible. I as a humble your representative, if anything I can do to take your issues to right authorities, I will be more than happy to do it. But as I said, I always acknowledge and recognize the good work that the Prime Minister and the ministers are doing. I only hope that all of us join hands and now take these export-related issues to a level wherein exporter alone will don't have to fight the battle, but the whole country will stand behind him and realizing that you are the ones who are actually helping us to fight a much bigger war of economy. Because just imagine, without oil we cannot survive, and the oil is financed by exports. So therefore exports are very, very critical, and therefore we must work on it. So thank you very much. Once again, appreciate this opportunity of meeting my members of my family. And as you invited me to Mumbai for this Western Region award function, now of course I don't know when we will be able to meet physically, but at least whenever you call me, I will be always available on call to answer any of your